What's happening, Pod Squad? Welcome into an episode of Stripe It Like It's Hot. Thank you for listening today. Today is not sponsored by anything, but I am repping the, this is a big Yeti. How big is this thing? This has got to be like a 32-inch top contractor school Yeti. Thank you, Brian, for sending that. And our friends here, like, again, they're not paying us to do this. I brought the little pavement depot, what do you call this? Traffic cone. Little pavement. People who are listening to this are like, you're an idiot. I have no idea what you're talking about. Anyways, if you're in Canada, shout out to these guys. They're not sponsoring, but I wanted to shout them out anyways. The team over there are awesome. They're in Ontario. They sell stuff. We love them. We've bought equipment from them. We've bought supplies from them. Great dudes over there. Look them up. I think they ship to the States too. So just go like a pavement depot. They're the real deal. All right. I wanted to bend your ear for 15 minutes today on the podcast about... I guess the not nice way of putting it would be, fixing a really bad attitude about business. And it's something I've been guilty of too. But the attitude would be viewing negative, let me clarify, what you perceive as a negative obstacle or a barrier to you, growing your business, and instead flipping it around and viewing it as an opportunity. So I'm going to try and not do like general rah here, but I'll give you something very specific. So let's go on the way back machine to when I was a maintenance dude at a shopping mall. I loved that job because I didn't know nothing about nothing. And that job gave me the opportunity to learn something about something. So in other words, I had this old building that was like super old and decrepit and stuff would break all the time. I didn't know how to fix HVAC units, furnaces, water heaters, flooring. I didn't know any of that, but that job gave me the opportunity to do it. So that in itself was kind of a cool opportunity. Like, dude, I have no idea how to go fix an air conditioner, but as my boss would say, you might as well try. It's going to be 2 days before the technicians show up. So that was like an opportunity. One of the things I learned at that job was snow removal sucks. Like, at least that's what I thought. So we had a huge property, like massive. There was like 500,000 square feet of pavement, and it snowed like 90 inches up there. Snowed a ton in my old town. So every winter it was like, it was chaos. Like, it was a small town, mind you, but the shopping mall was, had like 30, 40 tenants in there. So a lot of people would come to the shopping mall every day. And I'm telling you, man, if the snow removal was not up to snuff, according to the standards of, the tenants or even the customers coming into the mall, dude, we would hear about it. And so my experience at that shopping mall for 4 years was watching my boss deal with snow removal contractors. Some of them were good. Sometimes they do well, but other times, like, there'd be so many problems, man. Like, you didn't clear the snow fast enough. Why'd you pile the snow in that spot? The piles are too high and it's blocking my sign for my store. How come the sidewalks are too icy? How come they didn't show up until this time? How come like the bill is $10,000 instead of $7,000? It was crazy, right? My fond, I almost said fondest. It's not a fond memory, but one of my clear memories of my boss dealing with snow removal was him agonizing over, like, he would have an invoice in his hand from the contractor for like, it doesn't matter, $10,000. And he would get like the hourly breakdown. Like, this is how many hours we were here with this equipment. And then he would go to this wall of like security cameras, because we had like, I think we had like 30 in the whole property. And he would look at the outside ones to try and compare the hourly invoice for a snow removal event. So sometimes, a contractor might show up with like 6 pieces of equipment. And he'd get this bill with 6 pieces of equipment, and he was trying to make it all line up because he had questions like, did they actually start at 10 p.m.? Or like, I didn't see them here at 8 a.m. Why is this machine clocked in till 9 a.m.? Crazy, man. Crazy. So, needless to say, and this is the point I'm getting to, when my first business coach told me, like, why don't you do anything to generate revenue in the winter? You already have a relationship with all of these parking lot decision makers in my new town. Why don't you get into snow removal? It's a necessary service. And I probably said this like a million times before. Sorry if it's repeating, but like, I gave him like 27 reasons in 5 minutes why I would never do snow removal. And the reasons I gave him were all like based on my experience, right? It's unpredictable. It's chaotic. It's a lot of like I don't want to operate equipment was a big one. Like, I'm capable of operating a skid steer or something to plow snow. I don't want to do that. That's not my strong suit. I've never really done it before myself. I'm not really sure how to price it. And he basically said, it doesn't matter that there's all those obstacles, because if you face those obstacles, guess who else faces those obstacles? Your competition. And I couldn't say anything to that because he was 100% right. So a lot of the excuses, or a lot of the obstacles, I should say, that I told Mike, my first coach, was no, they were not specific to me. Like, if I can't predict the snowfall totals, none of my competitors can predict the snowfall totals. If, it's, I'm trying to think what would be the other excuses. I'm blanking. I keep going back to the fact that I just didn't want to operate equipment. Potential lawsuits. I remember that was one of my things too, is like, dude, the insurance costs. That was the one I was thinking. The insurance costs. Like, just so you guys know out there, when I had my striping business and it was just me and a helper, basically, I was paying like $1,000 a year for insurance. The moment I added snow removal, it shot up to $12,000 a year. And that's like, I would die if we got that now. That would be awesome. Like, we're well north of that. We're like into the 30,000 range now because of snow removal. And so that's another really good example. Like, the cost of insurance for snow removal actively is pushing out contractors in my city. Like, especially after last year, because it didn't snow that much. So if you're a contractor and you're like, dude, I'm sick of paying $20,000-$30,000 for insurance. Plus it didn't snow much last year. Like, this is dumb. I'm out. I'm telling you, those are the opportunities that if it's a market, if it's a challenge that all of your competitors are going to face, it's not a challenge. It's actually an opportunity. If you reframe your mind and how you think about those things, if you're facing down the barrel of a $20,000 insurance quote to get into a service, so are your competitors. And so when it comes to, I realize not everyone listening is in snow removal, but the lesson applies no matter what you do. So one of the things I would encourage you guys to look at is analyze, like, what are some of those obstacles that you face that you feel are like barriers to you growing your business. So in running the Stripe It Academy and even working with some, companies one-on-one, I've gathered some of those. What are those like common challenges? Actually, these are some of the things I hear in Blacktop Banter as well. Like, some of the challenges that some, line striping and seal coating companies are facing are like, my market already has so many people doing this. That seems like an obstacle. Or it's really hard to do this service in this market because of this reason. So for example, in my market, I can't buy seal coat here, just so you know. Like, it has to be like the transportation costs of getting seal coat to my market is insane. There are no plants here. The closest plant is like 8 hours away. So like, logistically, it's a nightmare to get seal coat here. So yeah, that's going to slow down, or it would appear to slow down and be an obstacle for us doing that thing. But that's the same obstacle my competitors have. One I hear a lot too is like, this service won't work in this location. Like, seal coating is a good example here in my city. Commercial seal coating is not common. Like, I'm telling you, man, like less than, I don't have the actual number. I'm going to guess like less than 3% of commercial parking lots are seal coated here. So you could view that as an obstacle. Like, why would I, and there's a certain element of truth to this, like, why would I go offer a service that requires this investment into equipment and getting material here when only like 2% of the people are doing it? Yes, there's some truth to that, and you should probably make a good business decision, but do you actually view that as an opportunity to educate your clients, educate your market, and be the first one to offer it at scale in your market? Super common one. This is one we've talked about before on this show. And I try to always ask some of our guests about this as well. Like, hiring people is like, dude, you wouldn't believe how many like small business owners in our industry, and maybe you're one of them listening to this, who, like, you're a small company, you have maybe 1 or 2 people helping you, and you're like, man, it's impossible to hire people. Like, I can't find people. No one wants to work. Everyone sucks. People don't want to work. Man, that is like, yes, in its purest form, that's an obstacle. But if you're facing that challenge, like if you can't find qualified people, 2 things. Number 1, probably means your competitors can't either. And second thing, what are you doing to overcome that obstacle? Because if you are in a market with 5 other striping companies or 10 other striping companies, and they're struggling to hire people just like you are, what are you going to do to be the one that solves that problem first? Because if you can solve that problem and acquire good talent, good people into your company's going to grow, right? Another big one, I saved the best for last. Another big one is I can't charge as much as I want to or need to because I got all these like low priced guys running around. Matt, you know about this. You got all these like low cost, like, I don't know, wedding photographers or cheapo people out there. It happens in every industry, man. Like there's always going to be people who, you know, you're trying to seal coat for 40 cents a foot or 30 cents a foot and they do it for 12. Or like we see that a lot, honestly, in our market. We see that a lot with our line striping, which is still a huge part of our business. Like we will often have a customer come back to us and say, you know, I can't do it for that price. I got a quote that's like less than half of what you are. And that is an obstacle, potentially. Like, absolutely, if you have inexpensive options in your market, competitors are doing it. Yeah, it could be an obstacle, but do you actually view that as the opportunity to offer a significantly better value to your customers? So I'm going to go back to snow removal here as an example. So many companies here in my market will give you as a customer an hourly rate sheet, okay, for equipment. So they're like, you want me to show up in your parking lot at 2 a.m. in winter to plow snow? I will give you an hourly rate of, a cheap price would be like $90 an hour, even $100 an hour. So our hourly rate, we don't really offer hourly rates anymore, but like would be, if you were to adjust it, would be way more than $100 an hour, like way more. So if you just look at that and say, I could never, ever offer somebody a skid steer to plow snow for $150 an hour when Joe Blow is doing it for 90, man, I'm telling you, A, you can, and B, you should, because the guy who's doing it for really, really cheap is not going to offer a high quality experience. They're not going to be able to provide a big value to the customer. There's going to be times when because they're so cheap, they've taken on so many contracts and they're not making a lot of money that they can't actually fulfill all of their snow contracts, or worst case scenario, they're not making money so that when they have equipment repairs, they can't repair their own equipment. And the person in the end who suffers is the customer. So far too often, man, I'm telling you, I've got to get away from snow here for a second, but far too often I hear striping companies and seal coating companies. I'd say probably a mix of both. A lot of business owners of striping and seal coating companies are intimidated by competitors in their market doing it for cheaper. And instead of viewing it as the opportunity to differentiate yourself, they shrink back, man. They shrink back and they say like, I don't think I should continue doing this. It's so hard to keep up with these guys who are low bid guys. Yes, it's true that could be an obstacle, but you need to reframe that as the opportunity to provide value and differentiate yourself. In other words, go plow snow like I did, if it snows. Yeah, I didn't want to plow snow at all. I thought, man, there's just so many reasons why. Like, I don't want to be sued. I don't want to pay the insurance. I can't predict the snow. The first year that I did snow removal, this is 100% true, and this is how I'll end it. Like, we didn't own snow equipment. And when I say we, there's 3 of us in the company, 2.5. We didn't own equipment. Like, truthfully, I only had a 1/2-ton pickup truck towing the striping trailer behind me. So the only way I could get into snow removal was pay the $12,000 and go rent a pickup truck. Didn't even own it. Rent a 1-ton pickup truck that mercifully the vendor decided to buy a snowblade for me. Wasn't even that good of a snowblade, but at least it was something. And my plan was to just subcontract that truck out to other bigger snow companies who I knew from talking to my clients, like would often get in situations where they couldn't keep up in a heavy snow. So I was like, this is perfect. I will stick a dude in a truck that I rented, and every time it snows, he's going to go out and save the day for these customers. Great idea in theory. That year was a record low snowfall. And it, like, by the time it started snowing in our market in like January, which is crazy late, the companies that we were going to subcontract to didn't even want us around because they're like, our dudes are starving. We're going to work them to the bone because they need money. So that year I lost thousands and thousands of dollars, literally 5 figures, north of $10,000 I lost by getting into snow. But I'm telling you, like, even that challenge of like messing up the first year and learning the hard way, I took valuable lessons away from it, and I viewed that as the opportunity. I told myself at the end of that snow season with my coach, if I struggled this year, that means other companies struggled this year, without question. If it was a record low snowfall for me, it was for them too. And I'm not going to be the one that sits on the sidelines complaining about it. I'm going to go solve that problem. And since then, we've done millions of dollars in snow, and we'll continue because we love snow removal. That's it. You fired up? Stoked to you. There you go. So if you want to chat more on that, if you're like, yeah, but you don't understand my situation, well, I'll tell you what, you look me up. You send me a message online. We'll talk about what challenge you have, and I will help you reframe it into something as an opportunity. I think it's a skill set. It's a mindset shift that requires the skill set to do it. If you can reframe your mind as challenges into opportunities, I'm telling you, you'll crush your competition, because most of your competitors are not viewing the challenges as opportunities. So that's it. Keep your stripes hot. Stay cool. Talk to you next week. I said stay cool because it's hot in here.